and welcome to the Voices of Influence, our podcast series where Leadership Through Data and RIMPA are bringing thought leaders and experts together to discuss a range of topics from information management, artificial intelligence, education, sustainability, and all those lovely stuff. I am your host, Jacqueline Stockwell, CEO and founder at Leadership Through Data. I empower information leaders globally, focusing on personal and professional development. As an international public speaker, I aim to inspire, motivate, and educate in every presentation or podcast I deliver. My goal is to continue to make information management training engaging and useful through storytelling and visual aids. Now, this episode, we are looking at education, and I'm here with one of the key influencers, Dr. Louise Curham. Do you want to tell me about you? Tell me about you. Introduce yourself.
Thanks for your intro, Jackie. So I'm joining you from Wajak Lands here in Boorloo, Perth, where I have a position as a teacher of records and archives to students enrolled in Curtin University's Graduate School of Libraries, Archives, Records and Information Science. So we're part of the International iSchools network, which is kind of the development of library schools that happened as people realised that the interface between technology and information was going to become more and more pressing. And library schools were looking for ways, in fact, information professionals were looking for ways to slice and dice our understanding of the profession in an education environment in a more sophisticated, a more interdependent way. So the iSchools are quite an important movement, and there's a few of them in Australia and across the region. So the courses I teach, there's in Australia at the moment, across the 3 schools that remain, everyone's experiencing a lift in enrolments, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
Something right now in the environment is attracting the community to us. For us, you know, we have quite an interesting mix in our students, and I've had the great good fortune to teach in 2 of Australia's 3 library schools. So it's given me a bit of a sense of actually who these students are.
And you said there's been quite an uplift. Do you have any ideas? I know you won't have a magic wand to find why there's been an uplift, but do you have any ideas as to why that would be?
So there's a little bit of data that informs that view, which is that roughly the division amongst the students is about 1/3 who are retraining. So I think for many of us, we're recognising that the profession we perhaps started in is not going to be the profession that's going to last through our careers. So I think that's one component there. The other one is for the information professions, it's still the case that there's a proportion of people who meet us through their local library. They love the environment. They love that role of helping people with information in an environment that has the qualities of sanctuary and real public service, which are, 2 things that got talked about a lot by library leaders during COVID. So people get attracted to that. They then get funneled through our information management units as they start off on their journey towards libraries. And for a portion of them, they go, wow, I never knew this really interesting and quite complex world existed. And I've never really thought about things like, how can I make information that can behave like evidence for a really long time? And how can I use information like to actually hold people to account? How does that happen? So I think what happens in this exciting world of education is that we have this opportunity to kind of, if you like, bring people to the light side or the dark side of information management. I think also there's a quality around the people side of technology. That's something that's my personal hunch. So the library side has always been there, where, some people just get really intrigued by what happens in the world of information management, data management, information as records, as holding people transparency and accountability. But my own real hunch here is that more and more this side of technology that links with people and what people need, an understanding of kind of the purpose of information to connect people is really something I think that excites a lot of people.
Yeah. And I have to ask this question because it is quite an interesting one for me as well. There's a lot of push for us to get younger people in our profession. Are you seeing that sort of transition? Are they younger people coming through now? Because you said that there was new ones coming through, and there's also transitions from different career paths into libraries and information management.
Yeah, so in the two schools I've taught in, one still has an undergraduate stream. So one of those courses, one of those universities still has a stream of undergraduates. And so that is a younger pool of people. But generally speaking, I think it takes a bit of kind of worldly nous, if you like, to be ready for the adventure of information management. Because the skill set that we need to have is one where we need to be able to collaborate, we need to be able to be strong, if you like, to stick up for this role of accountable, transparent information, what it can do for organisations, what it can do to, and also just to do the nuts and bolts of actually telling people, hey, there's privacy risk there, you need to really think about that. That can take a lot of chutzpah from, the person to actually come out and say that. So I think it's asking a lot of people who are, 21, 22 on graduation. So I guess my own experience is that, yes, there's an older skew, but to say older from my position as in the later part of my career, I've had a 20-year career in the public service. Now I'm in the academy. They're young, they're 30, they're 30-something. So there's a portion of them who are in that age group for sure. So I would say it's a journey for them. The placement process is really important. And I have such high admiration for my colleague here at Curtin who handles the placements, Beck Shillington. Her relationships with industry create such rich opportunities for the students. And time and again, we hear from industry partners, what a great experience it's been for them. And we see in the consequences of those placements for the students, both as learners, but also in terms of their employment outcomes and the like. It's just a really excellent and important part of the deal. And it can be there because our master's students have to do both. They have to do a library placement and they have to do an IM placement in order to meet the requirements of our accredited courses, because the 3 information associations accredit the Australian courses. So that means they have to do these 2 placements. So often that is a moment where students who've never taken the records side on as something they imagine themselves doing go, oh, right, okay, this is what we're actually talking about. We're talking about stuff that is evidence, basically, that really makes a difference in people's lives. And that kind of meaningful component to our work is, I think, really deeply inspiring. Occasionally, well, not so occasionally actually, I get these really exhilarating emails from people who've either got a job they really want or they've just loved the unit that I've taught. And it really does make it all worthwhile.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay, great. You guys really got something out of this and you're going to be able to give to the profession in a way that is just really exciting.
Yeah. And I think it's really amazingly what you're doing. What more is RIMPA? What is RIMPA doing to help sort of the education within the Australia land?
So RIMPA plays a crucial role because they accredit the courses, and that accreditation is really, really important to students. So students put in a huge amount of resources, both in terms of time and in terms of financial commitment. It's a really big effort to take a master's degree, to do a graduate diploma, even to do a graduate certificate that some of the other unis offer is a really big commitment. And what's really, that accreditation process is a hefty piece of work. And the fact that RIMPA actually commits resources to do that is a really important part of the process. Engagement by professionals in the sector, RIMPA members, to get involved in that accreditation process is really important. And the level of seriousness with which that's taken, because it's quite a responsibility. Basically, there's one person who teaches records and archives in each of the 3 remaining courses. There is a 4th uni who still has a stream they're teaching out, which has been one of our key research institutions and continues to be really active in research, which is Monash. But for the courses that are actively teaching at the moment, it's a lot of responsibility for one person to bring the profession to our new graduates. One of the things I really seek to do, and I believe my colleagues who also teach in this space do, is to bring industry practitioners into our teaching as much as we can. So that relies on goodwill from RIMPA, that relies on RIMPA members being happy to share their expertise, in their downtime to enlighten the students, and really show them what it's all about in practice.
And it's really interesting that you bring in about sort of bringing in practitioners to teach, because as you know, we're a huge advocate of group learning and actually practically doing things. And I think they are the best people to go in and offer those teachings. It's just how they're taught, just to make sure that they've got, obviously, as practitioners ourselves, there is a sort of skills gap to make sure that they are able to deliver that training or that education piece, to make sure that the audience that are listening to really understand and get it. And it's not kind of chalk and talk. It's more of an engaging discussion, a delivery of, wow, these are the amazing things that we do, and this is why we do it.
Yeah.
So, I think it's
I think one of the things there is, so the way I describe my role is as a broker. So I see myself as linking key ideas. So I spend quite a lot of time attending industry events. I've been moving backwards and forwards between Canberra and Perth over the last couple of years, and that has allowed me to get involved in government information as well as RIMPA events, to really kind of listen to what industry is saying. And I find that really important too, because of course, one of the troubles for all of us with our skills is we get into an institution and to a certain degree we de-skill. And that's also the case in universities. As a practitioner, you're no longer a practitioner. To try to keep up with practitioner, where things are at with practitioners takes lots of engagement. And I've been really fortunate, I guess, that I've had lots of practitioners around me who are happy to contribute their time in that way. So those sessions are not just, so when I bring them in for what I call fireside chats with my students, that's not just for the students, that's also a chance for me to get QA on my teaching content, even though my guests don't necessarily realize that, because I'm sharing with them some of what my content is, which allows me to kind of get a read on whether they think the language is right, whether the key message is right. So it's a really good way of me testing my messages, as well as a really good way of me keeping up with what really is at the forefront of practitioners' minds. And the format I go for is a pretty informal one, because I'm trying to keep it as light a burden as possible. And it really is a fireside chat. I send them 3 or 4 questions. We have half an hour, maybe 40 minutes. And it's really interesting. The students often don't have questions. And I think it's because it's new for them and the information they're taking on is new, and they're really just to absorb. The questions tend to come later.
But it's interesting to also watch the audience if they're absorbing or there's information overload, because that's the thing as well, that, you can actually see that from their body language, that, they've taken on too much. So let's just kind of have some breaks or some stop gaps and kind of get them moving as well. But Louise, it's absolutely been sensational. Where can listeners reach out and find you?
Yeah, so you can search me up through Curtin University, and you can learn about the courses in Australia on the RIMPA website. So Curtin's courses, if you search up Records, Archives, Curtin, you'll find them. But on the RIMPA website, you can learn about all the courses in Australia. And the other thing I really want people to be aware of is that we have quite a high portion of people who take our courses who've been working in industry for ages and have never had a formal qualification in our area. And often a driver for that is they're looking for professional development, they're looking for promotion, they're looking to change their angle to move into another area in the profession. And sometimes they're looking to work independently, to consult, take on these kind of roles where their professional standing becomes more, they really want to have those credentials behind them. University is really different from how it was 15 years ago. It's a much more person-centered place. So I really encourage people to explore what's on offer. One of the really interesting things is getting involved in research. And most of the unis, indeed Curtin's courses, have a focus on a research component in our masters, which is quite new for us. And it's something I'm really excited about because it's something our sector really needs, which is more, kind of straight, hardcore research on some key issues. So that's something I find amongst practitioners I talk to, they're really interested in that, in the opportunity to do some research. So that's definitely one thing to really take a look at if this has caught your attention.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for your time.
See you.
See ya.
Bye.